What's going on, everyone? So this season is going to be very interesting with Giannis. Obviously, he's on a new extension, and the idea is that he's going to stick around with the Bucks. But there also is the saying, sign your extension, get your money now, and then request and demand that trade later. And you've seen players do it, and you've seen players do it with success. And look, Giannis is already kind of thrown the idea of leaving Milwaukee out there, and hey, if the Bucks don't do something. And look, the Bucks are, in my opinion, are kind of stuck. I don't think that they've made the best decisions. Them getting Damian Lillard, cool, fine, great, but I think that they should have kept Drew Holiday over Chris Middleton. I think that they're still incredibly old. I do like some of their acquisitions. I do think that they have actually had a low-key good offseason in some of the pieces that they were able to acquire, but are they, where are they as far as contention goes? I mean, obviously Giannis is incredible. They're going to be a top team just because Giannis is so great, but Giannis has also been dealing with a lot of injuries the last few years, and they've been very disappointed in the playoffs. And the Giannis Damian Lillard experiment has not looked great. It's had its moments, but it's not looked great. And again, they're still very old, right? Like Giannis is 29. He's still on the right side of 30, but Damian Lillard is what I want to say was 34, right? Got Brook Lopez who's 36, Chris Middleton's 33, right? Like it's just they don't have that real point of attack guy like that, which is why I think that they really should have kept Drew Holiday. I think Drew Holiday was the guy. They chose Chris Middleton, gave him, a max contract. Problem is, the Bucks are kind of stuck. They are. They're kind of stuck. And if this doesn't work out again, I really wouldn't be shocked if the Bucks are if Giannis goes to the Bucks and is like, hey, you know what? It's time to get me out of here. Right? It's time that I go. But we'll also see what the new acquisitions do. Right? You got Gary Trent Jr., which I think was a huge pickup for them. Huge. Talking about legit 3-and-D shooting guard. Obviously, lacked the defense last year, but this is a guy that I do think kind of get back to that. Taurean Prince, I think, was a solid veteran pickup for them, especially in place of Malik Beasley, Tyler Smith. They're in a pretty good shape as far as roster in this offseason goes. But again, you look at, Boston's still going to be the best team. Top of Boston still being the best team. You have the New York Knicks, I think, are second best in the East. Then, depending on how Paul George, Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey shape up, Milwaukee might be at best the fourth best team in the East. So if the Bucks are kind of floundering there a little bit, does Giannis ask out? And who reports have kind of waiting to see what happens with Giannis? The Golden State Warriors. So the Golden State Warriors are in a very similar position with Steph Curry, right? Steph Curry, again, just signed that new extension. So 1-year extension because the new CBA rules for age, right? And this kind of feels like the last season for Steph and the Warriors. Right? Steph, yes, signed that extension, but it makes more sense to trade him, right? It gives Steph that security in case he gets hurt or anything like that. But it also gives a team that if we're to trade for him next offseason, because I don't think it really happens this offseason, that guaranteed that other year where it's we don't want to sell the farm, and then all of a sudden Steph retires or something. Or he leaves in free agency or something like that, right? Just kind of gives the team that would trade him that insurance. Plus, there's all the LeBron and Steph team-up talks. And Steph has been very, vocal and kind of driving that narrative. Usually it's LeBron that's driving those types of narratives and kind of keeping the conversation going in the media. It's actually been Steph that has talked a lot about it. LeBron's actually been remarkably quiet in that regard. Because he usually is the guy that's Steph this, Steph. But nonetheless, right, Giannis and Steph would be quite the duo, right? It's similar idea to Giannis and Dame, but Steph is just better. And I don't think Steph would have, like, Damian Lillard looked like he declined last year. Like, he looked like he, like, took a deep decline. I don't think you're going to get that with Steph. I mean, we just saw him in the Olympics and how good he looked in the Olympics. Right? He had his struggles early on, but when it mattered most, boom, guess who woke up? Right? So, I think that you have two teams with two stars that are kind of in the same position that could potentially look to team up for each other. And the Warriors have a bunch of good young talent. Warriors got to figure out, what do they want to do with Jonathan Kuminga, right? They have Pod, they have Trace, they have, Moody. They have a lot of just really good young talent that if you were the Bucks and you were going to start a rebuild, would make sense to get. It makes sense if you're Milwaukee to go get a guy like a Kuminga, get a guy like a Pod, to get a guy like Moses Moody, whatever, right? Like, it would make sense to do something along those lines. And then now you gotta hit the reset button. You trade Dame. I still think you'd get a decent package. I don't think you're gonna get anything crazy, but I do think you'd get a decent package for Dame. Still a guy that can light it up when he's on. And supposedly Dame was out of shape and stuff like Dame even kind of talked about it. And it sounds like he's like miserable in Milwaukee. So, maybe a team would look at it as like he'd be better here. He's in better shape, right? Like, so we'll see in that regard. But having a Steph Giannis team up, I really don't think is that far-fetched. I wouldn't be shocked if, say, the Bucks end up suffering another, first-round exit or something. Giannis just next offseason goes, get me out of here, right? Because that's what this is, based on the reports that have came out, appear to be the case. That the Warriors, they're potentially interested in Jimmy Butler, but they're really kind of keeping an eye on Giannis, right? They're kind of waiting to see, like, what does that end up doing? Which would make sense because, again, I think if Steph is going to leave and request a trade, demand a trade, it's next offseason. But I also think Steph would give the Warriors a chance first. Right? So Warriors will have some cap space to be able to do stuff. I could see Steph and the Warriors kind of going in next offseason and Steph kind of going like, see what you can do, see what you can get. If not, trade me. Kind of like what Dame did with the Blazers. And the Blazers were like, oh, we re-signed Jeremy Grant. And he was like, what? Okay, yeah, it's time for me to go. Right? Like, I could see something similar happening. Right? I think it really boils down to, can Dame and Giannis figure it out? If Damian Lillard still is, if he can be that Portland Dame that he's not that far removed from, granted, he is getting older, so there is that question and concern, but if he can kind of get back to being even a version of that, then the Milwaukee Bucks will be very good, right? Also, health-wise, right? Chris Middleton's been incredibly injury-prone. Can he stay healthy? If he can stay healthy, or healthier, right, then I think that would help Milwaukee a lot. Same thing with Giannis, right? Can Giannis, stay healthier and be on the court? I mean, but the problem is, like last year, Giannis had to have like a historically great season, literally, and a historically all-time great season, just for them to kind of stay afloat at times, it felt like. And Dame had, don't get me wrong, Dame had his games, he had his moments, right? They had their stretches, they had games where they both even combined looked very good. But it was very few and far between. It wasn't this reliable, like, man, you can count on Dame and Giannis stepping up every night. You count on Giannis, but you weren't able to count on Dame every night. I mean, he has had as many just duds as he did excellent nights. And so, if Damian Lillard can kind of get back into the swing of things, kind of get back into the flow of things, kind of get back to being the Dame that the Bucks were expecting when they traded for him, then I do think, one, Giannis probably sticks around, and two, I also think that they will be pretty good. I think you'll see a different version of the Bucks next season. Right? And look, to be fair, you have seen a lot of teams kind of take a year or two. Now, very, very rarely does, a star team up work right out the gate. Usually takes a year or two to kind of figure it out and get it worked out. So hopefully this season will be better than last. But that the Warriors are still waiting in the wing. Warriors are still going to be counting down the days in case Giannis ends up becoming available, or maybe at the trade deadline. What if, Milwaukee's awful? What if they're not very good? What if they're, because, look, you have teams like the Cavs. You're not going to have, the Donovan Mitchell threat looming, and they could always trade like Darius Garland and stuff. You have the Pacers. You have several teams that are not going to be too far behind, right? So, again, I think it could be a very interesting season, and particularly off season for both the Warriors and the Bucks coming up. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, and I pass a question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel with your thoughts? Do you think Giannis is on his way to the Milwaukee to the Golden State Warriors? Do you think he's going to stay with the Bucks? That's why he signed that extension. Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. It's me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the